I would like to introduce one of the new members of ITACCUS. She's an artist, a space artist, Daniela de Paulis. She is also an artist and collaborator of Astronomers Without Borders, and today she's going to talk to us about her research. So, welcome.
Thanks, Nahum, for the great definition of space artist. It's something I always wanted to be since I was very young, so it's great. Okay, so I will start. I didn't really time my presentation. I have a lot of material to show, so please, Nahum, let me know when I'm really running out of time. One part of this presentation actually was already presented at the International Astronautical Congress in Naples in October. And I will start introducing my research, which is based on one of my art projects called Optics. The research on the technology which I use for this art project is Visual Moonbounce. I will try and draw some links between this art project, this technology, and the history of space travel. And also I'm going to talk a little bit about other collaborative projects I'm involved with at the moment. The okay, no, sorry. Most of you are probably familiar with the technology Moonbounce. It was developed after the Second World War, and it was a very convenient method at the time for sending messages before the deployment of artificial satellites. So the moon was used as a natural satellite for sending mostly Morse code and voice messages from one location to another location on Earth using radio antennas. The technology was also used for espionage purposes, so the US Navy used it especially during the Cold War to detect signals coming from the former Soviet Union and the Eastern European bloc. So there is also a dark side to this technology. The Moonbounce technology was only officially launched in 1960, which means that for most of its life it was kept unknown and secret. So this picture was taken during the launch ceremony in 1960s, and soon after that the technology was abandoned because of the deployment of these artificial satellites. So it was very short-lived, only about 20 years. But it had a strong importance in the development of artificial satellites, of course, of radio astronomy. Also, it was the very first step of the space race, because this technology allowed humankind to touch another celestial body by the means of radio waves.
Sorry, Daniela, can you tell us what we're seeing there?
It says Moon Relay.
Yeah, but what is the picture?
Oh, the picture, yes. It's a US warship. It's not a very good resolution image. It's from the NASA archive. And it shows, it took me a while to actually see it myself, but it shows seamen on top of this warship. They are creating this tidal moon relay, which it was the name of one.
Those are people standing.
Yeah, these are all people creating that name Moon Relay, which was actually the name of a military project by the US Navy that was an espionage project.
So why are they, so that it can be seen? So why are they doing this?
Well, it was taken, I would imagine it's an aerial picture, taken of this ship and the seamen creating this name, because in 28 January 1960 this technology was launched to the public, and it was a good way to, I guess, introduced this technology. Also, as I said, it's been used already since the early 40s as a secret tool. So, but soon after this ceremony, the technology was abandoned, so it didn't have a great life after that.
But sorry, what's the other thing that we can see on the right?
Oh, well, I try to find as much information as possible on this picture. To be honest, I don't know what that is. I know it's a US carrier, it's a military ship, and these are seamen. However, I just don't know what that is about.
Yeah, it's an incredible picture.
If you have any idea, it suggests that.
No, don't pay, it's aircraft.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right, actually.
It's an aircraft carrier.
Aircraft carrier. Aircraft.
It's interesting how a fresh look can actually help a lot seeing better, because it's been...
They're on the runways right there. It looks like they're parked on the.
They're parked on the deck.
It's the only image of this event, unfortunately. So, and it's also on Wikipedia. I think if you go on the Moonbounce technology, this is what you would normally see.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for the addition. The technology has been used since the 50s mainly by radio amateurs, but also by some international artists. One of my favorite projects made with this technology is by American composer Pauline Oliveros. She's been creating performances with the Moonbounce since 1987. She started with one project called Echoes from the Moon, where she played her accordion. And during the live music performance, she sent via phone line some of these sounds, and she received back the echoes of these sounds after about 3 seconds, so that the Moonbounce sounds and the live sounds of her accordion will mix together. At the end of the performance, also the public used to queue up for talking via the phone and sending their voice to the moon and receiving their echoes. So apparently, according to her description of the event, the possibility of listening to one's echo is a very powerful experience. And I can actually say that myself. I've been transmitting my voice many times now to the moon, and every time is really quite exciting to listen to the echoes of one's voice. One more recent project is by Qatar Patel, a British artist who used this technology to moonbounce the Moonlight Sonata. She recorded the sound in Morse code and played the Moonbounce sound as music again using an automated piano. I hope I described it properly because it's quite a complex work. But really what I was particularly fascinated by this technology is the possibility of imagining this journey to the moon and back. So somehow there was something for me unsatisfying about for me only being able to listen to the sound. So I thought, what if we actually send images to the moon and back so that we can see somehow traces of this journey. I was also inspired by this image, which has been left on the moon's surface 40 years ago in 1972 by Charles Duke, an astronaut of the Apollo 16 mission. Mm-hmm. He left this picture of his family on the moon's surface, and it's been there since then. So my idea was really about sending people ideas and thoughts to the moon in form of images. So I got in touch with the radio telescope, which is not far from where I live in Holland. The telescope is called Dwingeloo radio telescope. It's in the north of Holland. It was built in 1956 and is now used only for radio amateur activities. So it's quite unique in Europe and actually in the rest of the world. It's the only radio telescope that actually is not dedicated to scientific research but only to playful activities like art and ham radio technologies. So I started working with the team for developing this sort of new application of Moonbounce technology, which we now call Visual Moonbounce. We started testing images back in 2009. This was the very first image that traveled to the moon and back. On the left-hand side, you see the call signs of the two ham radio operators that were involved in that first experiment. The result was okay, was acceptable, not perfect yet. The date was 6th of December 2009. We kept experimenting and we received some pretty good images after a few months experiments. This was one of the first good images received by Moonbounce. It's an image that I treasure a lot because somehow it shows what for me Visual Moonbounce is, which is a form of virtual travel. So it's a way to travel into outer space more with the mind than physically, which very likely will be actually the way we will travel in the future. I mean, I'm very interested also in the future studies, and I read often about the future of space travel, and some of the theories actually says that very likely we will only send robots into outer space, and we will communicate with these robots, with these machines, exploring for us the universe. So I guess humankind will be able in the future to actually transmit their thoughts into space. So I'm quite fascinated by this idea. Okay, I would like to say something about the distortion of the images. Of course, the purpose of the project is not receiving perfect quality images because we have modern satellites to do that. The distortion is caused by mainly the fact that the moon is a very bad reflector. It's a sphere, of course, so the radio waves, when they hit the moon surface, are scattered all over the space. So only a very small percentage of these radio waves come back on Earth. Also, the cosmos is continuously crossed by other radio waves of all kinds, and somehow they contaminate these original signals. Other causes are the Doppler shift and other causes which I don't know much about. The software we use is actually a digital version of a software which was used by NASA during their first space missions. This is astronaut Gordon Cooper in the Faith 7 space mission. And this image was also sent by SSTB, which is also called slow scan television, basically. And the transmission of the image is very slow. It happens line by line by line by line, so the image actually appears very slowly. And again, there is something which I find very interesting about this process, especially in our times. The main project where I applied this technology is called Optics. Again, here you see the title received by Moonbounce. Just to give you an idea of how much distortion an image receives after Moonbounce. This is the original color, and this is the same color after approximately 800,000 kilometers. The journey to the moon and back in more or less 3 seconds, the speed of light. So the no, okay, maybe I'll tell more later about this. Okay, the title, as many of you might have already gathered, is from the essay written by Newton in 1704 about light reflection and refraction. The process of visual moonbounce is kind of similar to what happens to the light waves when they hit an obstacle. They are reflected and refracted. Also, I like the analogy with the light spectrum because for me, radio waves are only the carrier of these images, of these thoughts. For me, are really light waves. So I think of them really as light waves, more than radio waves. The project has been presented in many different ways. There is a structure, however, it changes every time depending on collaborators, on the venue. So every time is completely different. Also, the team that works in the performance is different. We have people transmitting images from Poland, Brazil, Switzerland, different countries in the world. But we always receive the images at Dwingeloo because it's the only antenna that can only do that, that can effectively do that. The images are submitted by the public. So when there is a live event, I normally advertise the event so that people can send their images and we receive all kinds of things. For example, this one. Also, we moonbounce some pictures from the Golden Records. These images, of course, are still traveling into the cosmos. So only a small part has been reflected by the moon and the radio waves are still traveling together with all the other radio waves transmitted by the humankind. So, one of the most interesting events, in my opinion, was in collaboration with the collective Astronomers Without Borders. The optics performance was presented last April in 2012 as part of the Global Astronomy Month. During this performance, we received images from literally all around the world. Portraits were very popular. After the event, I printed them. I sent them back with a message to the people that submitted them. Somehow writing a message that says that the images really travel to the moon and back is a very good way to actually say that this has actually happened, because of course one can modify these images using any software. But the fact that there is a proper statement, let's say proper statement by the artist, but also a certificate made by the radio amateurs that somehow testify this journey, makes it even more special somehow. So people really enjoy being virtual astronauts. They send thanks images, and we keep friendship with them also after the performance, because somehow everybody gets very involved in this project. Some of the radio amateurs I collaborate with are experimenting and trying to make these images even more realistic, even more perfect. That is not my primary concern, but that's what they do. So this is probably the best picture received by the moon so far. And we gave this picture to Andrei Kuipers a few weeks ago. Another project I realized with this technology is an installation where I used images of nuclear explosions. For me, it was a way also to draw some links with the history of moonbounce, the dark side of this technology, the use made by the military for also progressing in the space race, in the Cold War. So there are some images of nuclear bombs that I project as very, very expanded images so that the pixeled texture is actually quite powerful. These are 2 of the 7 images that I transmitted. Something I like to say about these images is that every time they are moonbounce, they look different. So even if I use these images and moonbounce several times, it will always look different because of the continuously changing astronomical conditions. This is also a limitation in a way for the live events, because we can only perform that during specific days of the month. Usually it's a couple of days during each month. So we also, when we schedule that, we have to look at the position of the moon, and accordingly to that also set the time for the performance. So it's something which has to be always carefully planned. Another work I made with this technology is Le Voyage dans la Lune. It's a video which is made by 26 still images which I moonbounced from Dwingeloo radio telescope as a sequence, so one after the next. It's the closest experiment to a proper moonbounced video, which is not yet a possibility because the technology is not ready for it yet. So I'm just going to show a quick excerpt from the video. I can find that. Okay. Something I'd like to say about the video is that besides being made by moonbounced images, the sound was provided by the Japanese Space Agency, and is the sonification, the altimeter data gathered from a lunar satellite, Kaguya Selene. This altimeter data being converted into sounds. This particular sound is from the far side of the moon, around the Korolev crater, and it's it's much slower than the original version, because I wanted to give this idea of someone walking on the moon surface. So you will actually hear a much slower version of the original sound. pitches were clearly the higher, the height of the moon surface, and the low pitches were the lows of the moon. Oh, by the way, the video is something which I'm still working on. I've been making a holographic version of this video. Okay, go back. I've been working on a holographic version of this video, inspired by the holographic principle of the universe, which is something I'm researching on at the moment. The idea that the universe is a hologram is something which somehow really inspires me, because makes me think that actually we will be able eventually to express our thoughts as holograms in the future. So transmitting, well, thoughts, images as holographic messages made of the same matter of the universe. So this is something which I'm working on at the moment. It's a very new concept, so I just thought maybe to introduce it. Recently, NASA made a very interesting experiment using a laser. The NASA scientists sent the Mona Lisa portrait to one of the satellites orbiting the moon, and they received, after 3 seconds approximately, the reflection of this image, which is somehow very similar to the Moonbounce images. Of course, it's a completely different technology. I'm just talking about this experiment because probably laser will be the future of image transmission. So laser will allow sending much more complex messages, not perhaps only images. It will be, also the future of space missions. Images from other planets will be transmitted by laser instead of radio waves, as it is currently happening. This is the Moonbounce version of Mona Lisa, by the way. Lots of other artworks have been sent to the moon and back, always submitted by the audience, by the way. So there is a continuous journey of these artworks to the moon. More information on the technology are on the optics.info website. And now I would like to also briefly introduce 2 more projects. One is the artist residency that I'm developing together with ASTRON and CAMRAS at the Dwingeloo radio telescope. It will be officially starting in 2014. At the moment, the radio telescope is under restoration, so it will reopen in May. And the artist residency will allow artists to work on their own project, also thanks to some funding from ASTRON. So this is one of the things I'm working on.
Somebody was asking about who's funding it?
ASTRON. ASTRON is
AstroArt.
the Institute for Radio Astronomy in the Netherlands. So they are allocating money especially for art outreach projects. They realized, actually, also thanks to my collaboration, how important the cultural and artistic aspect of science are. And so I'm working on initiating this residency. Finally, the AstroArt project is another collaborative work in collaboration with Astronomers Without Borders, a collective based in LA, but with people collaborating from all around the world. Is a community that communicates mainly via online media. And the main purpose of Astronomers Without Borders is, of course, scientific outreach, especially in the field of astronomy. And after my presentation of the optics project last year, I started working also on the AstroArt program. So a cultural artistic program within the regular programs of Astronomers Without Borders. So this is the monthly program. Every month we have one artist, and the artist is presented through 4 posts which are put on the website, and eventually there will be an archive of artists working with astronomy and space topics. The platform is very open. It's not only showcasing established artists, but generally speaking, any artist with an interesting work. Also, not necessarily artists, scientists, or people with a creative and lateral thinking about astronomy and space. Fiorella Terenzi, an astrophysicist living in Miami. She was a pioneer of the acoustic artistic research around radio astronomy. So she already in the early 80s she was working with the sound of the star, which is a practice that has become very popular in the last 10-15 years. However, she was really the pioneer of this work. So she was showcased as the very first artist of this program. Also, we have a painter from Japan, Yoshiyuki Koinuma, and an artist from the Netherlands called Jasper Koppes. He's a conceptual artist. This is to say that we are really open to all kinds of artistic ideas, and the project is a collaboration between myself, Richard Clark, Matthew Whitehouse, and Kathleen Horner, which are all located in different places on Earth, so we often meet via Skype and discuss ideas. So we are currently working on the Global Astronomy Month, the AstroArt program for the Global Astronomy Month, which will launch in April, so in a few weeks. And we will have film screenings, possibly an art panel, other artistic presentation streamed online. So you're very welcome to follow, and well, thank you. That's it.
Any questions? Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested in Moonbounce. This is using slow scan technology and shortwave radio. That's the technology you're doing it with?
Yes. The software is called MMSSTV.
Yeah.
It's the digital version of the slow scan television. It was invented by a Japanese guy in 2000, and it's the program we use to transmit these images. Basically, the images are converted into sounds, and the sounds are converted into radio waves and sent to the moon, and vice versa.
The reason I find this really interesting was because slow scan was being used by artists in the 70s to try to send images, and it was actually one of those emerging technologies, and I'm really interested to hear that it's come back. That was, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, for me at least, it's a very interesting technology. I'm not sure how many artists are working with slow scan television at the moment. If you maybe have other tips on this, I would be interested to hear about it, because this is a very big part of my artistic research. So I'm happy to hear about other artists working on similar kind of ideas or technologies.
Corinne?
Yes. In the film that you showed, the noise seemed to be staying still. So I don't quite understand. Is it not that every time you send an image, a frame, that the noise would change?
Well, maybe I wasn't clear enough about the interaction of sound and images. I'm sorry, I've been trying to really squeeze off this presentation. Basically, the images are, this video is made of 26 moonbounced images that were actually provided by an astronomer from the Manchester Astronomical Society. The images were moonbounced. I composed them into a sequence, and I also added the sound which was provided by the Japanese Space Agency. The sound is the sonification of this altimeter data collected by Selene Kaguya, which is a satellite orbiting, which has been orbiting the moon. I don't know if it's still orbiting. And with the, one of the tasks that the satellite had, besides collecting high-resolution images of the moon, was also to collect this altimeter data. So the sound actually has...
sorry, I didn't mean with noise the sound. I meant the noise in the image.
Oh, sorry.
That just didn't change at all. That makes no sense to me.
Maybe it's because the screen, the projection, doesn't quite emphasize that. But definitely there is a difference between the individual images, and because the images were moon-bounced as a sequence, so within a very short pause between each other. Of course, there is not so much difference because well, the whole thing was moon-bounced in a very few minutes, so there is not such a great difference. But there is definitely a difference if you look at all the individual shots of the film.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thanks so much.